Good morning. Good morning. Welcome all of you to First Church in Boston, Unitarian Universalist, whether you are here in person, and it's good to see so many of you here. One can't take this for granted anymore in the days of COVID. But welcome also if you're following us on Facebook, either live now or are looking back at it later in the future. Whoever you are, wherever you are, whenever you are, welcome. Our interim minister, Edmund Robinson, was called away due to a death in the family, and the Reverend Tom Schade has stepped in to do today's sermon and other liturgical functions. He was here before, I believe, on Memorial Day weekend, so some of you will remember him. And I think that's all I need to say at this point. Thanks to everybody. That'll do, okay. I hand the podium to Tom.
Thank you, Peter. Our opening hymn this morning will be number 336 in the Gray Hymnal, All My Memories of Love. Light the chalice here while I lead the congregation in reciting the words. That light we see is burning in my hall. How far that little candle throws his beams, so shines a good deed in a naughty world. And all join together in the affirmation of this church, which is in your order of service. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. As far as announcements go, I have just one. The Social Justice Committee is meeting after church today in the auditorium at 12:20. And most of our meeting today will be led by Beth Curran of our Ministerial Search Committee. So please join us. Oh, all right.
Hello, I'm Barbara Martin, Chair of the Ministerial Search Committee, and I just wanted to say that I will be at coffee hour with a paper sign-up for the group discussions. We understand some people have been encountering some snags with Sign Up Genius, that it's asking for more information than you want to give them, or seems to be sending up a lot of ads. In any case, if there are people who would just like to come up to somebody with a list and say, I'd like to come to this one at this time, I will be there today. Thank you.
each time that we have struck out in anger without just cause. We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. For each time that our greed has blinded us to the needs of others, we forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. For the selfishness which sets us apart and alone, we forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. For falling short of the admonitions of the Spirit, we forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. For losing sight of our unity, we forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. For those and for so many acts, both evident and subtle, which have fueled the illusion of separateness, we forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
Peter, why don't you move the mics over here a little bit? Thank you. I understand that you have begun the celebration of joys and sorrows, joys and concerns in your worship service, and this is the time assigned for that. So I'm not sure how you do it here, but I have seen it done in many, many churches, so we'll do it the way I'm familiar with, and invite you to come up, form a line, and briefly speak your joy or concern into the mic. We have two mics there, and I understand that is because one mic is for you and one mic is for the Facebook participants. So there we go. So why don't you join us in the line, okay? Oh, wait, Craig is running desperately up into the room, so. Here comes Craig to
Sure. Craig is our Deus ex machina.
you know, in so many congregations at moments like this, they say, Lord, hear our prayer. And
Good morning, everyone. I want to share a joy. My nephew, Christian, has been accepted into Physician's Assistant School, and we'll be celebrating him in a surprise party at 1 o'clock today. So I'm very proud of him and quite an accomplishment. Thank you.
thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I have a concern, which is that my older sister's dear friend Charles had a stroke on Friday, and he's at the Albany Medical Center, and we're not sure how it's going. So if you could keep Charles in your mind. Thank you.
I will just add my own, and that is that our responsive reading this morning was written by Reverend Rob Eller Isaacs, who is a colleague known to throughout our ministerial body, and who died this summer, and we are, which just makes me very sad. Pardon? Yeah, why don't you do that? All right. These and many unspoken joys and sorrows are in the room here today, so let us have eyes to see and ears to hear what has not been spoken, and to keep the silent joys and sorrows in our hearts as we go. Our sermon reading, seems like I have to be right here, don't I? Our sermon reading is from Leviticus, and it's describing the ritual of atonement, and there's a lot that goes on before this. People are, the worship leaders are instructed in bathing before the ritual, what clothes they wear, washing their clothes first, and then bathing, and then putting on clothes specified as to that they're linen, and there's a turban involved, and there's also blood sacrifice that occurs before this part of the ritual. A bull and a he-goat is sacrificed. In fact, it's specified that the he-goat that's sacrificed is the brother of this goat that is the part of that we get to. And so I'm reading from Leviticus. And when Aaron has finished purging the shrine, the tent of the meeting, and the altar, then a live goat will be brought forward. And Aaron shall lay both his hands upon the head of the live goat and confess over it all the iniquities and transgressions of the Israelites, whatever their sins, putting them on the head of the goat, and then it shall be sent off into the wilderness with a man who goes with it. Thus the goat shall carry on it all of the iniquities to an inaccessible region, and the goat shall be set free in the wilderness. Let us join in singing hymn number 218, Who Can Say? Please rise as you're willing, able, or in the spirit to do. Well, I got a text from Edmund on Monday describing his plight and asking me to preach, and I said yes, of course. And he said that he had a theme for the service. He said he was thinking about preaching about scapegoating. So scapegoating, that's the instruction he gave me. And I have had to spin up a variation on that theme. I don't know whether this will be what Edmund intended, but this is what I have been thinking about this. Now, this morning I went first to the biblical text that describes that ancient Israelite scapegoating ritual. And it is traditional to read that at the beginning of the Yom Kippur period. And I trust that most of us have heard about that ritual. And I ask, how are we to make sense of it? And we should begin by just remembering the provenance of this story. You know, the book of Leviticus was written during the reign of King David, which was about 1000 before the Common Era. But it was written as though it was written by Moses in the era of Moses, which it is estimated, because this is quite kind of murky historically, that's estimated to be about 1500 for the Common Era, BC. So it's clearly a legend that was inherited, told and retold from somewhere before 1000 BCE. So it's at least 3,000 years old. And the ritual remembers an event, most likely a bloody event. Somewhere back in the time before people started performing this ritual, there was a real scapegoating, when someone was believed to carry all the sins of the community and was driven from the community to die somewhere in the wilderness. A ritual remembers a real event in a safer form. But somehow, that early scapegoating, that bloody original scapegoating worked. A person thought to be an offender was banished, and some positive result occurred for the expelling community. I mean, people were banished and killed by their community many times in ancient times, but somehow this one event was remembered as having a positive enough result that it was worth turning into a ritual to perform again and again. Somehow this banishment and death resulted in something good happening for the expelling community. Maybe peace within the community, prosperity, or good crops, or the end of an epidemic, or a relief of social antagonisms, a relief of the effects of what was to be taken as the sins of the community. So ritual seeks to invoke, again, the positive effect of a prior bloody event. If you look at the Eucharist in Christian churches, they are rituals that invoke the bloody sacrifice of Jesus on the cross. And they are a ritual to bring a positive result to the community by its performance. So are you with me? Am I making sense? Am I talking in tongues? 2 points. One is that rituals are recreations of prior real events, and sacrificial rituals, which are the most common rituals of the ancient world, recall bloody, violent events. And secondly is that prior bloody event had a positive effect in the community, or at least it prevented worse things from happening. Now, I think it's hard for us to grasp now the positive effects of scapegoating on the expelling community. That's because we identify so strongly with the victims of a scapegoating community. I mean, okay, when I first read this story or heard about this story about the goat, the scapegoat, my first thought was, my 20th century, 21st century thought was, oh my gosh, that poor goat. There's no way I could see a poor goat, an innocent animal, being punished like that. I thought, oh my God, lost, lonely in the wilderness, listening to the wolves howl at night. That poor goat. We start now with sympathy for the victim in almost any circumstance. And so the expelling community seems demonic to us. What kind of people just torture a poor goat like this, right? We never think now that somehow the goat is really carrying the sins of the community. We never buy the magic that's occurred here. But these bloody expulsions bring peace to the expelling communities. People really did think that the goat carried away their sins, and as a result, the community could reestablish peace within itself because all of the sins had been carried off. And so all of the antagonisms that grow in a community over a year, arising from people's sins, are wiped clean. People have a new heart, just like the hymn says. Now, to see how scapegoating and rituals that remember prior scapegoating bring positive results to the community, we need to look at a more recent example. Look at the lynchings of Jim Crow America. Lynchings were both real events, a bloody and cruel event, and after a while, a ritual. It was a ritual that remembered prior lynchings. And they became, after a while, not the spontaneous outbreaks of violence against the African American community, but they became community events. They were picnics. The whole community gathered. People made food and brought them to the lynching. People took photographs and shared them, made postcards. They were enacting not only this lynching, but prior lynchings that they had heard about. Lynchings brought the white people of their community together and fostered their common identity as white people, and reminded them that they were, as white people, the masters of their community, and that they were, through this ritual and this bloody event, putting African Americans in their place, that potent phrase. They were powerful, a ritual that was a powerful community building event for the white community. During that same Jim Crow era, up north and in the middle of the country, we also saw these urban racial massacres, or white people's race riots, where white mobs invaded black communities to assault and kill people, rape women, and burn property. They paralleled the lynching of individuals, the 1919 race riot in Chicago, the Tulsa massacre, which we've all heard about lately. It was the same repeating ritualized violence aimed at expelling people or containing people who seemed to be the cause of all the social antagonism in a rapidly urbanizing era of high immigration. And I call these events ritualized because the people involved were consciously repeating, recreating prior events in the hopes that they would get the same positive result. Now let me turn to the question of my sermon. What happens if these sacrificial rituals of scapegoating violence stop working? And I can hear you out there asking in my special ears here, how can you think that scapegoating doesn't work anymore? I mean, didn't we just see an example of scapegoating in full display? The governor of Florida gathers up 50 asylum seekers and sends them to Martha's Vineyard, banishing them from a border state to what he believes will be a hostile territory. It has all the elements of a ritual. It repeats, he knows this is already an established pattern in Texas, and he's aiming for the symbolic performance of expulsion to those who are the supposed cause of so much supposed trouble. And the governor got some headlines, but the attempting ritual of scapegoating failed. It did not bring Anglo-Americans together, vicariously bound by the reassertion of their whiteness, of the racial makeup of our country that he was defending. No, very few people actually thought these asylum seekers were guilty. And so nobody really guilty of anything. And therefore nobody really believed that their expulsion affirmed our innocence. Because after all, isn't it the essential purpose of scapegoating? They are expelled because of their sins, and we, the expellers, are more innocent as a result. Instead, people saw them as victims, cared for them, and broke the spell of the ritual that was intended. So why doesn't scapegoating work as well as it used to? Because the boundaries between the in-group and the out-group get more porous and permeable all the time. Venezuelans are not people from another planet to us anymore. We understand that the world is getting smaller and that all the people of the world are one humanity. We know that for a lot of reasons, just including globalization. And secondly, we have become sensitive to the victim. This is one of the great turnings of our Western civilization. We have become sensitive to the victim. Examine your own thoughts and reactions whenever you read a story in the newspaper, see it on TV, see it referred to in Twitter. Whenever you see a situation that's complicated and unclear, the first key that we have to unlock our understanding of that is to go, well, who's the victim in this circumstance? Who's the victim in this circumstance? That's like our first question. Just think about it. It's like why I think, well, who could do this to a goat? Right? As soon as I hear that story, I think about the goat. I don't think about how smart people are to get rid of their sins. I don't think about how this goat deserves it. I think, who would do this to a goat? See, scapegoating, whether it's in a living, present, bloody, violent form or in a ritual form, cannot coexist with our cultural sensitivity to the victim. Here's the problem. Scapegoating and the rituals that recall prior violent scapegoating actions sustain deeply mythic senses of community, tribe, nationhood, and belonging. And when the opportunities for scapegoating rituals go away, those myths of identity and community become more insistent and needier. We see all around us how people who are sustained in their personhood by their identity in the myths of white America are feeling like they're losing their country, that their identity is being attacked and dissolved. The culture and the media no longer sends the message that white America is the real America, and that the America of the past, when non-white immigration was low and African American struggle was suppressed, that was a great America, and it's not going to return. And we see when that mythology is under threat, that violence and antagonism rises to the surface. We have a mythological deficit in this country right now. The myth that America is in decline, that the real America is being overwhelmed, that real Americans are losing their country, that myth is compelling. Rationally, we know this is not true. That such myths are based on irrational and racist distinctions. Rationally, we know that this generation of immigrants from Central and South America are not really any different than the immigrants from Ireland and Italy of a century ago. Rationally, we know that the African American struggle for freedom does not damage our republic, but actually fulfills it. Rationally, we know that the liberation of women and the recognition of the varieties of gender expression, rationally we know that that really does not harm men. Rationally, we know these things. But deeply dangerous, dehumanizing myths are not defeated by liberal rationality. If there's anything we have learned from the late and lamented 20th century, it is that authoritarian, and can I say it, fascist, movements gain power because they fulfill deeply irrational and mythic needs, desires to belong, desires to dominate, the desire to submit to domination, the desire to be part of a group, the desire to blame others and to expel them and to even exterminate them. When I consider the mythic landscape of our country, I tremble in fear. Now, religion is the realm of myth and legend and even the irrational. Politicians deliver laws and policies and programs, and businesses deliver goods and services and profits. Labor unions deliver better wages and working conditions. Charities deliver mercy to the needy. Hospitals deliver health care. But religion delivers meaning and dreams and a narrative that gives hope. And this is hard for us. This is really hard for us because as liberal religion, we are so bound to the narrative of liberal rationality. We think that if we just explain how it's better to sacrifice short-term interests for long-term interests, that we explain how humanity is one race and there are no subdivisions that count, that if we explain and humanize, we can counter the demonization that is being visited upon people. We're convinced, especially in this house, not this house particularly, but in the Unitarian Universalist house, we're convinced that liberal rationality is the greatest weapon we have and the greatest thing that will save us. And yet, haven't we figured out yet that that does not meet the needs of people whose mythic identity is under attack, that feels under attack to them? It's so hard for us to speak our hopes. So we have to become so much better at telling the story that we have to tell. Our nation is growing into a multiracial, multicultural democracy. That's always been our possibility, never our inevitability, but our possibility. And when we fulfill that possibility, all of us will be happier, and our lives will be better. And when we outgrow the divisions and the systems of oppression that currently divide us, when those are overcome, our communities can become communities of mutual care and even love. And that we believe and know and have tasted the love of all for all. The love of all for all. That's a phrase out of Whitman. He also calls that adhesion. The love of all for all. That will flower among us. Paul Robeson said it, you quote it in our hymnal in 689 if you wish to look it up. Sorrow will one day turn to joy, and all that breaks the heart and oppresses the soul will one day give place to peace and understanding, and everyone shall be free. That is our mythic narrative. We believe it as a matter of faith, even when we don't see it unfolding around us. Just like that song goes, I believe in the sun even when it's not shining. It's our work as liberal religion to embody, to speak, to tell, to live as though it were true, this belief of a world saved by love. That the love of all, for all, will someday come to flower. We have to live that and embody that and preach that even though the world thinks us foolish and naive. Because it is our hope. It is our hope. It's not our hope that the world will come to its senses and think rationally about everything. It's not our hope. It's our hope that someday the love of all for all will come to flower. And so we have to live it and talk it and preach it and tell it, for it's our hope and it's the world's salvation. And really, isn't the world's salvation our business in church? At least it is our only stay against the darkness. May it be so. Let us join in singing. We go right to the song here. Oh, you know, I have, nope, we don't. Okay, wait a second, let me get your little, I have one up here from September 11th, which I don't declare. Okay, the offering. For the work of the church and its ministry in the world, its ministry especially in this place and this ancient community. Let that offering be, go ahead, be given and received, and may our gifts be a blessing to the world. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. I've chosen hymn number 95, There Is More Love Somewhere, as our closing hymn. I want us to get used to singing songs of longing, of hope, simple songs that express in the deepest and simplest way where we're going. So many of our hymns explain so much. They're wonderful. They're great teaching songs. But do they move the heart? There is more love somewhere. My friends, thank you for this opportunity to be with you and to worship together. I just want to remind you that there's a power at work in the universe, a power not made by human hands, but by all of our hands together and even more. And it is the power of love, and the power of love of all, for all, and it is at work. And you can trust that power. You can trust that power whenever you reach out to do justice, to spread love, to reach out to the lonely or the ones who need us. That power will be with you, and you can trust that power. So go forth in peace, in confidence, in hope, and do the work of love in the world.